Ambition in the building.
Hi, it's Alex and
Tiffany, welcome back to Mambition. I always come out with this one-liners at the beginning. I'm really sorry. I promise I'm normal. I promise I'm not very odd.
I mean, I guess we're both slightly odd, but in a
I
good
think
way.
so. Yes, in a good way. But you know what? Chris Williamson said it. He said, "Embrace your uniqueness." And by the way, guys, Chris Williamson is this it's a podcaster and he talks a lot about self-development and he has a podcast called Modern Wisdom. Not that I'm promoting him, by the way, we don't get any money for doing that. But yeah, he did a TED talk and it said about embracing your weirdness, I think it's called. And I think it's worth a watch. I'll actually add the link in the description. It's got
Okay.
nothing to do with today's episode, but I do think it's such a an important one for everyone. I think just being yourself and enjoying everything about how odd you are, which I am.
I can definitely, I'm definitely there with you on being a little bit odd, but in a good way. I think like it's what makes you unique and it's what makes you do things like go, should we start a podcast?
Yes, should we start a podcast? Yes, yes, yes.
Like we don't have enough things already to do.
I know.
But yeah, today, so we're going to talk about support networks. We've talked about it a little bit, I guess, in some of the previous episodes. We mentioned how important it is to kind of have a support network. And yeah, we're just going to talk a little bit off the cuff about our support networks and the importance of kind of building that support so that you ultimately have time to kind of fulfill your own ambitions. Without help and support, you're just not going to get there.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's worth starting with how we've become, like how we met actually, Alex. I think that might be a good way to kind of, because I think in a way you've become like a support network for me. I mean, I can't talk about, you know what I'm saying? Alex, like,
I
I
love
know
it.
you are. I just
Yeah.
myself. But no, I think it's like in terms of like I think it was starting this podcast and the conversations we've had prior has really helped us to, I think, like create this sort of connection and friendship. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. So I met Alex from my husband. I've stolen Alex from him.
I've stolen you from Mark.
Yeah, there you go. How long have you known Mark for?
Oh, that a long time. I've known him since I was like a teenager.
Wow.
So yeah, a long, long time.
Yes.
And yeah, he's in my group of friends that I've kind of had since school. So yeah, we go back a really long time. And I'd say as well, Mark is quite a unique person as well, a unique
Don't say that on here.
upbeat.
What she says, unique is like, he's odd.
I don't mean odd. He's very high energy. He's a real people person as well. But yeah. So that's how I met Tiffany. And actually, I'd only met you a couple of times before you moved to the Northeast, but we were pregnant. I actually text Mark to say, I'm pregnant. And he was like, no, Tiffany's pregnant as well. And I was like, oh, when's she due? And then he was like, whatever day I was due, you were due like, it was meant to be 3 days later.
Yeah, it was. But then
it wasn't.
Like an extra week for me, yeah. Giddy.
I just remember feeling really sorry for you during that period of time.
I remember very annoyed with you and everybody else was having babies early. Yeah, I was just annoyed. But no, so I think even that's like an example of how, we've obviously I've now become friends with you from Mark, and I probably see you more now than you see Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now obviously how that connection, that initial conversation in chat has allowed us to kind of become friends and then do this. And it's amazing how, if we never met or talked, we would never had this podcast. So that's an example of a support network and how you can create it.
And I guess how you can do it it's partially by putting yourself out there. I was saying that in the last episode that, you've always got to take the risk. You could say to somebody, do you want to go and do something? Do you want to go and get a coffee? And they could say no. They definitely could.
Rejection. Yeah.
But at the same time, how often do you get knocked? I mean, I don't really seem to get knocked back when I'm asking people to, start podcasts with me or go for pizza, I kind of have the attitude of if you want it, you have to make it happen yourself. Even down to, if I want people to go out for a meal, I'll message I've got a group of people going out for a meal on Easter Thursday just because I was like, do you want to go for curry? And there's now 15 of us going. And it's just, you ask people, and I want to do it, so I'm going to make it happen, and I'm going to invite other people.
I love that. But do you not think, Alex, though, I will say, do you not think a lot of that also has a lot to do with confidence?
Yeah.
Obviously you're a very confident person, so you don't think, oh, they might say no. And even if someone said no, you'd probably think, oh, they're just busy. You wouldn't think, oh, it's because they don't like me. So I think a lot of it is like that, our whole sort of perspective of confidence and just being okay with people saying no and not thinking it's because they don't like us and reading into it. But I think anyone who's not confident might struggle to, or they might get one knock back and think, oh no, people don't, you know what I mean? So I think a lot of it is that. So what's made you, I mean, what do you think it is about you that makes you super confident enough to kind of just invite people along for things and not overthink it?
Well, I think it goes, my gran was like the most confident, assertive woman ever. She was like, grew up in like family of Italian immigrants, and she just had this like unwavering self-belief. But even though she did like courses in assertiveness and stuff like that, she really didn't need to be doing those. But she really tried to impress upon me, you can do whatever you want to do. And just to kind of believe in yourself. She had a very positive attitude on life. So she used to say, even if you go in somewhere rubbish, if you have to go, enjoy it. And I like that philosophy. But I think she was also a bit eccentric and a bit weird, but she was also very happy to be that way. And I think, I was probably like growing up with undiagnosed ADHD. I was often in trouble at school. I've mentioned this before, and maybe that's a future episode. But because of that, I was always like a little bit different to other people, but she kind of made me not mind that. And kind of guess I've just embraced it really. But yeah, you're right. If I'm asking people to do stuff, I wouldn't even really, it wouldn't occur to me that they might say no. And if they did say no, then that's fine. I definitely wouldn't take it personally. It just, there's another saying, I don't know where it comes from. I can't credit it to anyone, but it's like, what people think of me is none of my business. And I really love that. It's like,
wow,
it doesn't matter. Like, I have opinions about people who good or bad or neutral, and like, really, how does that impact on them at all? They don't know about it. And like, you just have to not worry about what people think of you. I know it's easier said than done. I mean, I do get that.
But no, that's an amazing mindset. And I think that's something I've always admired about you, Alex, because for me, confidence has been a journey. It's not something I wasn't brought up to be confident, if that makes sense. I was brought up in a typical kind of Nigerian, you toe the line, you listen to other people, you are a kind of like a typical girl. I think girls are always a bit more submissive, and also brought up to kind of, be polite, which there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you go too far in being polite that you don't express your like opinions, or you're not really allowed to have one.
That like flips into that people pleasing kind of side of things.
Yes, people pleasing. That's it. I very much grew up in a very people pleasing way. And it's only in the last few years I've really grown into my confidence, and I'm at that stage now where I am a lot more, like you said, embracing my weirdness. And I am very weird, but I love that about myself. And now I think I'm also starting to be like what you said about, I don't take things as personal as I used to, but I will be honest and say that that's been a recent thing for me rather than something I've always brought up to be. So I think what I would suggest is that, I mean, for me, I suppose my take on this whole support network thing is that, you have to do the work. That's what I find. I mean, I've been lucky to, like we mentioned, kind of come into a network of my husband's friends and family, moving from London to the northeast of England. So I've had that kind of like, almost like a cushion. I always say it's a cushion, because I speak to a lot of people who have moved to the northeast and they don't know anyone. And like, it must be different for them. So I do count myself fortunate to have that. And also my husband is a very friendly and outgoing person. And actually, I will say this, I've only learned to know about confidence from my husband, just because he's shamelessly confident.
Yeah, I think like there's me, and then there's Mark, who's in like a whole other category of confidence.
So now that I think about it, my husband actually has been an example for me of how to not care. And he always says it. He's like, Tiffany, why don't, invite this person out? Something. He actually, now that I think about it, he does that a lot, because that's how he is. Like, he's just has so many friends, and it takes time to cultivate the friendships. But yeah, so like I said, I've been lucky to have this network, and a lot of the friendships I've built outside of that, it's actually been really random, like meeting people at play groups in parks. So my advice for anyone who is maybe in a newish area, or you're a newish mom who doesn't necessarily have mom friends, is to get out. I think you've got to get out. You won't meet anyone in the four walls of your house. You've got to kind of be somewhere where there's someone else with a child. It could be a park. And what I found is just like speaking to people, making say something about the weather, or talking about to your child might say something to their kid, or but just make the effort. I've always found to work. Yeah,
definitely. And I think, again, it's probably that confidence thing. So you come across as super confident now, Tiffany. I would never know that you ever struggled with your confidence. And I had periods in my teens where I wasn't like super confident. I had a friend when I went to uni who was like crazy confident, and still is, and I learned a lot from her as well. She's called Trisha, and she's crazy confident. She's like a bit of a mark. But yeah, I think, when we've been out together, I see you talking to people and chatting to people, and like, that is how you do it. Any conversation could be the start of a friendship. You just kind of have to hit it off, find things that you've got in common. Obviously, kids. So many of the things that you're going through are universal, and you automatically have something to talk to them about. But I think as well, if you do have family and support that you can reach out to, ask them. And I think as well, once you've got a friendship group, ask them. If you need somebody to babysit, ask someone who knows your kids. If somebody asked me to babysit their kids, I would.
Oh gosh, not me. I mean, like, I wouldn't baby someone else's kids now. I'm like, nah,
if Bella's asleep, then maybe.
There you go. See, that's what I mean. I don't blame you. But no, I get that. So it's about just like, so it sounds like a lot of what we're talking about with support networks really starts with confidence. So I would actually recommend to anyone who is in that stage of thinking about how to build a support network to work on their confidence. And I'm going to go a little bit off track here, but there's a couple of experiments that you can do. Like, there's a book, there was a very popular TED talk by a guy called Jia Jiang, 100 Days of Rejection. No, 100, actually, guys, do not quote me on this. Something about 100 like days of rejection along those lines. And what he did was he was someone he had so many business ideas, but he always felt that he never followed through on any single one of them, simply because of his confidence. It just felt so afraid. Once someone rejected him, he just felt like that was the end of the world. And I remember he mentioned that he had this idea for, I think it was something to do with skating. And then he said he just had this idea, but was so scared of anybody saying no to the idea, I decided not to follow through. And a few years later, someone else actually patented that idea and came out with it, and it became really popular and did really well. And he always regretted that. And he realized that at the root of it for him was just the fear of being rejected. So he went on this almost like an exercise, almost this revolution of just asking for things that he knew that people might say no to, but he did it anyway as a way to build his ability, just building his ability to like
handle that rejection.
Yeah, that be okay. Because I think like Alex was saying, like, if someone rejects you, like, you can just get on with your day. And I think a lot of people, we think, oh my God, we might die. Like, our mind always creates this like goes out of proportion when it comes to things like being rejected. And I think once you can be okay with someone saying no to you and thinking, actually, I can just get on my day, then you realize at the root of rejection is just someone saying no, and you will be fine. And I think that's something that maybe someone listening to this might need to work on in that journey of them building a network, because you will have someone who might not want to like connect with you, right? Or whatever.
That's a super interesting concept, though. Like, I might have to give that a watch, because like, I think that's, for me, I think it's really key. I think like feel the fear and do it anyway is like a big one for me. And I think the other one, like about getting knocked back, I always think the worst thing that they can do is say no. Like, and I get that for some people that no is like really hurts them, but at the end of the day, it's like, it's literally just no, and you can just take that. And I think that, yeah, for people who find that hard, that sounds like an ideal solution of practicing kind of tiny little knockbacks to get to the point where you can do the things you want to do. I think if you want to do something and you're being held back by your own mindset, you do have to work on it. It's not magically going to happen overnight, and it could take you a few years. But if you look at where you've started and where you get to, I think you'd probably see quite a big change. I definitely the feeling the fear and doing it anyway. You know, a lot of people don't like public speaking. I did a speech at my wedding just because I like to talk. And I kind of felt like I'm not going to an event where other people talk about me and I don't get to like get a microphone and be funny. You know what I mean?
I love that. I secretly love your confidence, Alex. I really do. I really do admire you for that. I think it's so. I think especially as women, a lot of people grow into the. Obviously, I know like you've taken your own journey too, but I just really like that. And even as a mother of a little girl, I'm always just thinking, "Oh, how can I get my daughter to just have more confidence early on than later on in life?" I think if I can achieve that with her, I will be so thrilled.
I think it's one of the biggest gifts you can give your kids to like help them have that confidence in themselves, not in like them trying to be like everyone else or anything like that.
Their unique, weird self. Just be like, I'm like this, and it's okay. Like we're not meant. Like another thing I was thinking, like even with this all like uniqueness and stuff, is that a lot of like when you're in school, you're almost like separated or bullied or picked on for being different. But as you get older and get into the workplace, or I don't know, you go out into the world, you're actually celebrated for being different. So it's weird how we then apply similar rules of that playground to the real world. And then we hide ourselves and we end up kind of just blending in with everybody else and not actually expressing our uniqueness that helps us to actually set our own path. And obviously, even in business, you can embrace your uniqueness and be amazing and excellent. So it's really sad how we apply the same rules. But yeah, I think for me, I really am passionate about. I would even hire a confidence coach for my children. And I know that sounds quite outlandish, but it's something I would do just because I just want them to be confident in themselves. Because then it's like they can just take on the world and just do things that I would love to done earlier in life than later, just because I waited to be okay with me. But I think whilst I was talking about that Jia Jiang theories of confidence, another thing he was also talking about was that a lot of times when people say no to you, it's nothing personal. It's just a logical reason that they have, but because we don't get to ask them about what that reason is, but then assume it's us. And I think that's an interesting one. Well, you might say to someone, "Are you free tonight?" They might say no, and you think, "Oh God, they hate me." But actually, maybe they've got something else. And because we don't ask, we then assume that it's us. So again, it's just being able to say, but why not? You know? So, what do you think about?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And the kind of flip side of that as well is that like having the confidence to say things like no to things that you don't want to do, not just saying yes to people please as well, like being in touch with what you actually want, like we said, like the ambitions that you've got, and saying no to things that maybe don't feed in or help you get to where you want to go in terms of your ambitions. But yeah, I think networks wise, I'm quite lucky. I have got quite a lot, you know, obviously I'm from the Northeast. I've got a big family. I've got lots of family living here. But I guess, you know, my parents are getting older and Ted's quite a intense child. So I know they're really knackered once they're finished looking after him. And I think, you know, thinking about the future, and I guess when they might just be a bit too tired to look after him and things like that, and what you do and how you build up those networks to kind of replace that support.
Wow. I like that a lot. You know, that's interesting because we've done a similar thing. So I'll give you an idea. We have Nana, thank God for Nana, my husband's mum. She's pretty much looks after our kids from when they were born to like a full-time job sort of thing. So Monday to Friday, that's her job, you know, more or less. We've replaced that. And she's looked after them. So now my son is 3, my daughter's 1. Nana's getting tired. You know, Nana's like, she's done it a while. And I know she's been amazing. But luckily enough, I met a lady at church and I started talking to her and she seems really cool. And she's recently started babysitting for us. And again, it all comes down to, I just saw I met her and I thought she was lovely. And we just started talking again. I just started talking to her. She probably I don't know who said the first word, but again, just out of that friendship, I realized now, I mean, she's a grown up I think she's in her 60s. She had 3 children. She actually ran a daycare when she lived in London. So it all kind of
Okay.
connected. So she's not just someone who's babysitting. She actually has experience of looking after children. So that's been even more like amazing for me. And again, that's something that's come out of my network. That wasn't someone I had to go and look for like or hire like formally, but I found it through going to church and just having a conversation with someone else. So it
And I
goes
guess that's like another example, isn't it, of being like a member of a community or
join
like
churches, or we're not saying she should this is not Jesus by the way, we're not trying they're trying to tell us to go to church.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an incredibly lapsed Catholic, so
I'm big on church. I will say that I am big on church, and I go to church every Sunday. And again, this is another thing. I will speak about this quickly as well, because again, this is another aspect of my community is church. So we recently started going to a church, and in the last 3 months, it's been amazing. So the church has a lot of young families, and now we have other like young family friends, so our kids play together, and the kids look forward to going. They play this. They have like a toy section. And again, that's something that I've had to kind of seek out and could be consistent to. I go to church every Sunday, so that's really added value to my life. So sometimes it's just I'm not saying convert to Christianity, but just tap into like communities and groups, and yeah,
it can be anything. It
can be
doesn't have to be
anything.
a religious community, but I think if it's around your interests, you're going to find
Definitely
people that you've got common ground already. You've got stuff to talk about with them that maybe doesn't feel forced or artificial. You've got a topic of conversation, and I think people think it's hard to make friends when they get older. Like it was so easy at school, but because you talk
No,
to
actually
people,
wasn't.
okay.
For making friends, I think, because you have to like anyway, I won't go into that, but I feel like in school you have to pretend or like fit in. But when you're old, again, you can be a little bit quirky and connect with other quirky people.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's all about trying to put yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone. Like, I know that that's a bit of a cliche, but you do, like, people aren't just going to phone you up and ask you to be friends. Like, you do have to put the work in, and like, being there to support. I think like a group of like-minded friends is really super important to being able to go out and do group days out with your friends and children. We're doing a huge big group holiday, aren't we, in May, where there's like maybe there's a scary amount of children and a lot of adults. But we're all at that stage in life where we've got kids and we're going to go away for a long weekend together, and the kids love it, but we've kind of got that support network there. I can't wait for that. I've just ordered a bouncy castle for that today.
Really? That sounds exciting. The kid Sebastian will be on it this week. Yeah, I think he's looking forward to. Last year was too little, but no, you're right. I think it's just about, like you said, cultivating, nurturing, taking a chance. It really is just like confident, like anything in life. Your network is a combination of you taking action and just being proactive and getting outside, trying things. You won't always get it right, and that's okay. But yeah, it's important, I think, especially as a mom, that you have sometimes mom friends as well, people who are going through a similar experience.
People you can complain about, not complain about, complain to.
Yeah, but they understand, they get it, right? Because I think it's a different thing. There's certain things you experience as a mom that people who don't have kids just don't understand. Like, I'm so tired. They're like, but I'm tired. And you're like, no, you're not tired. I'm tired.
Yeah, like someone at work who's only recently started, she's got a 1-year-old, and the other day she came to talk to me and ask like about the price of nappies and how expensive they were in town. And she was like, I've tried talking to some other people, but they just don't get it. Like, so I think, again, like I've ended up talking to her quite a lot just because our kids are not too dissimilar in age. And I think, meeting people and talking to people, not only do you end up with the support, but you end up with opportunities. You end up being able to go on a big group holiday. You end up meeting somebody that you think, oh, we've got a lot in common, and I think we both like talking. Let's do a podcast together. I think that's kind of like how these things work. By building a network, you get opportunities, you meet people, and you have that support that you need to be able to pursue those ambitions you've got.
Yes, I love that. So the overall message really of this podcast is that if if you're lacking those support networks, you just have to take small steps, right? Start somewhere, and yeah, just be okay with getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, and small steps, and you get there. But just reach out to people as much as you can.
Yeah, I think that's a good note to end on.
Mm.
And then, yeah, I don't know what we're going to talk about next time, but I'm sure we'll figure it out between now and then.
Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, guys, just just enjoy it, because I think, especially like with motherhood, it's the networks impact the quality of your life. So don't suffer in silence. Reach out, and just take those small steps, and in time you will just find yourself in a position where you have amazing networks, and it adds value to your life, and vice versa. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining us for today, and it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.